Hey everybody, Shane here, Shoebox Legends. Thanks for joining me for another episode as we delve into my extensive collection of Topps buyback baseball cards. These are vintage cards that Topps bought back, stamped, and reissued in packs in various programs over the years. I'm a huge fan of these and I've built a decent collection over time, and I want to share some more of them with you on the channel today with a focus on the wild decade both in the game of baseball and in the hobby that was the 1970s. Now, I have a little stack here that we're going to get to, some recent pickups and other really great 1970s buybacks, including a couple of Hall of Famers towards the end. But before we get to that, the backdrop to the intro today was provided by some pretty great kind of common cards from the 70s. Front and center, we have Pete LaCock. Who doesn't want a Pete LaCock buyback? He would make my buddy BK over at MacWack Stacks. He has a LML collection, which refers to or stands for low maturity level. And I think that Pete LaCock buyback would fit right in there. And then flanking him, we've got a couple of pairs of glasses. We've got Charlie Fox on the left in his shades. And then look at the stare of Fred Gladding on the right here. Those baby blues, they look less than straight, and they look like they are kind of staring into your soul. So a couple of 72s franking a Pete LaCock there, and we'll just go ahead and get started. I've got maybe 10 or 12 buybacks to get through in the stack. And we're going to start with a pair from 1974 Topps, which I've selected just because of their awesome photographs. Now, both of these are 50th anniversary Topps Heritage box topper buybacks. You can see the giant 50th anniversary stamp on the lower right in each of these. So they were 1974 released initially, bought back, and then these were sent in boxes, hobby boxes of 2023 Topps Heritage just last year as box toppers. A single wrapped card on the top of each box. So we have Wilbur Wood and Ralph Garr, and the photos on these are just incredible. I love the lounging Wilbur Wood in the dugout there in that powder blue Chicago uniform, pretty cool. And then Ralph Garr, love the action shot with the helmet midair. It has come off his head. He's sprinting out of the box towards first, but the helmet has yet to touch the ground. And as mid-70s action photography goes, that's a pretty great Ralph Garr card there. Wilbur Wood had a long career. I know quite a bit about him. I'm not as familiar, I'll be honest, with Ralph Garr, but the photograph just drew me to that one. So those are two candidates that may make the buyback Franken set, as all the cards we're going to look at in today's video, they have a chance to make that set. I've done other videos on that project, but if not, I keep my heritage buybacks for a separate project, which I've yet to unveil. But let's go back to the beginning of the decade next. And I have two 1970 Topps buyback cards, also from the 50th anniversary box topper program. And what's great is here we have a Seattle Pilots card on the left, Jerry McNerney, the catcher, and then a World Series card from the 1969 World Series, of course, the Miracle Mets, and a great catch by Tommy Agee, saving the day in front of that 396 sign on the outfield wall. So I love that these two kind of represent what was going on in the sport of baseball around the turn of the decade, from the late 60s and turning over into the 70s with the Pilots, and then obviously that 1969 Miracle Mets team. Just really, really cool. I love these cards. I love the concept of these, the relative scarcity of these. I know they're not for everybody, but just adore these buybacks, especially the Topps Heritage, like the first four that we looked at there. And speaking of Topps Heritage, I'm going to move now into, I've got 7 left, and everybody loves a good countdown here on YouTube, myself included. So let's do a top 7 1970s buybacks in today's episode. Have not shown any of these cards on the channel before, at least not directly. And what do I mean by that? Well, in the number 7 slot, starting off our 70s top 7 countdown, we have the 1972 Topps Billy Cowan. Now, this card is amazing. It's one of my favorite Angels cards of all time for obvious reasons. And I had a well-centered version of this buyback, and I sent it off to my buddy Dylan over at Double D Vintage Baseball Cards because he is a huge Angels fan, and I knew that card would just resonate with him and be a home run. But I wanted to get another copy of it for myself because I think this card should likely be in my Franken set at slot number 19 because the photo on this is all time. So just this is one where it makes the countdown just because of the photograph, not necessarily the player depicted on the card. Whoops, Charlie Fox is down. Let's make a little space here for that great Billy Cohen. But yeah, he's included here just because of the photo. It's just one of the most memorable photos on any 1970s card that I can think of. So that one makes it at number 7. And then we're going to transition into another Angels card that I've always loved, and I thought it's just an all-time Angels card, again, based on the photo. And I've always kind of closely related it to the Billy Cowan. It's from 1975 Topps. It's the Rudy Meoli. And look at the photograph on this. I just, again, in the same way that the halo works so well, I just think this photograph with Rudy kind of like looking up towards the heavens with his arms, outstretched and extended, it just always resonated with me as like the perfect California Angels card, or maybe the second most perfect California Angels card after the Billy Cowan. So just a great card. This one is very well beat up. Like, look at the upper right corner of this thing, bunted in, lower left, bunted. I mean, this thing it's off center, but you can't be picky when it comes to buybacks. I've said that many times. There just aren't enough of them out there to seek out perfection. You just kind of take what you can get, much like how I collected cards when I was a kid, especially vintage baseball cards. So they kind of take me back in that sense to a time period where I couldn't afford to be picky and opportunities were much more limited than they are now. So that Rudy Meoli comes in at number 6 after Billy Cowan started us off. We're going to get into the top 5 now with a Hall of Fame player and manager, Billy Martin. In this case with the 1974 Texas Rangers. He was the manager at that point in time, as this card clearly says. Look at the airbrushing here. Obviously Martin is very recognizable, but the Texas Rangers cap, that is some quality artwork by the folks at Topps. Some airbrushing there, but obviously I'm not here to give a career summary or anything on Billy Martin, but one of the more colorful and memorable personalities in baseball history, both with those Yankees dynasty teams, all the way back in the 50s and even, after that as a manager, just a really notable baseball personality. So happy to have this one again from the Topps Heritage Box Topper Buyback Program. That one comes in at number 5. Moving down now to number 4, we've got another 1974 Topps Buyback. 2 in a row here, and this is just a base card of an active player. Look at this Vita Blue. There is so much to love about this card. It's actually in pretty decent shape and pretty well centered for a buyback card from this period. But look at the photograph. I love that smile and just that look of jubilation here from Blue on this card. And I love the team color matching design here. The yellow and the green of the border and the flags. This just works so well. This is one of my favorite Vita Blue cards, and he's somebody who had quite a few, at least a handful of cards that I really enjoy. And finding this one in buyback format really made my week. This is one that popped up on eBay, and I was able to snag this for just $1 or $2. And just a stunning image. I'm really hoping this one makes the buyback Franken set. I think it would look great in that album. That's number 4. And as we get into the top 3, all remaining 3 cards here feature Hall of Famers. And we're going to start with the 1972 Topps release, which we have a good representation of in the background there. I sometimes refer to it as the psychedelic tombstone design. How about Bob Gibson? Just a pretty mammoth buyback here. He was a premier hurler throughout the 60s and into the 70s, and just love this image with the red of the warm-up jacket and the cap there against the blue in the background and the blue in the design. Just, man, stud pitcher, and you don't run across, buybacks that feature players of this caliber all that often. So if I find these and they're, reasonably priced under $20 for somebody who's on this level in terms of being an all-time great, that's just a little bit hard for me to resist. And this is card number 130. Obviously, the big players tended to get numbers that ended in 10 back in this era as far as their card numbers. So we'll see how this one does with Franken set inclusion. But Just a killer buyback there. And then it gets even better. One more 72 Topps buyback in the number 2 slot on our little countdown here. Some would say this is the best second baseman ever to play the game, Joe Morgan. Had never seen this particular card in buyback format until this one surfaced maybe in the last 2 or 3 months on eBay, and I was able to work out a deal, which I thought was a very reasonable price with the seller. Again, much less than you would pay for like a blaster, a retail blaster of Topps Heritage. I want to say I paid around $15, $12 to $15 maybe for this Joe Morgan. Again, it's wildly off-center, I know that, but you can't be picky. There just aren't many of these floating out there. And kind of cool, this one comes just a couple of card numbers after the Bob Gibson. So I have card number 130 and number 132 from the 72 Topps release, both featuring Hall of Fame greats, both in Heritage box topper buyback format. And that takes us to the number 1 card in our little mini countdown here of 7 1970s buybacks. This is one that I just got hot off the press here, or hot out of the mailbox here. Picked this up on eBay. This went up at open auction. And again, kind of the theme of today's episode, I was able to win this one. Had a little bit of a bidding war with one other person. I hope it wasn't you if you're watching this, Mookie Chilson, but was able to win this 1971 Topps Tom Seaver, Topps original buyback from the 2015 buyback program. So this 71 Topps Seaver was bought back by Topps. They stamped it with this Topps original stamp, which I know is maybe sacrilege to some, but trust me, there's plenty of 71 Tom Seavers out there. And then they reissued this in 2015 Topps, probably 2015 Topps Update. You could actually pull this card out of your hobby pack, which I think is wild. So twice pack issued a gorgeous Mets Tom Seaver here. And this was, of course, right in the height of his dominance as a pitcher. I want to say 1971, he led the league in like ERA and finished definitely top 5 in Cy Young, and he might have even been the runner-up. But just, period of dominance for Seaver. And really, I never thought I would see this card in buyback format, and was able to, again, bring it home for around the cost of a retail blaster. Certainly under $30, and I think closer to $25. So this will make a compelling push for card number 160 in the buyback Frankenstein. And this is the number 1 card in today's countdown and the final card in today's video. I hope you enjoyed this tour through the decade that was the 1970s in Topps buyback format. A lot of great color and interesting cards here. Certainly appreciate you spending a few minutes of your very valuable time here on the channel. I know there's a lot of content out there on YouTube, and it means a lot to me that you chose to consume some of mine. And I'll be back with more of it in the near future. But until then, keep on enjoying the hobby, everybody. See ya.